Hey, what's up, Jason?
How's it going? Are
Too
you are you,
bad.
broad- are you broadcasting in VR?
Yeah, this is my VR camera. That's all I got. So that's what we're working with. Seeing double.
Okay.
Um, Short intro. When I was 27, had some slight suicidal ideation. Friend recommended one day just taking mushrooms, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, fuck it." A week later, I experienced for a whole week, like complete presence. Tyler, this character seemed like just a character. Didn't really seem like me anymore. Everyone I met in public just felt like a facet of me. So I just sort of messed with people in a playful way. And yeah, it was really strange. And ever since that experience, I've sort of been scratching at the walls to experience that again, which, or had smaller spiritual experiences since then, not quite as profound, but sort of what brings me here. My question is on Asana. Exactly how much effort do I put into this? I'm going to demonstrate real quick. Excuse me, Pickles. So, like, do I want my back to be like super arched and stiff? Like,
The back should be super straight and stiff.
So not arched, like pushing into my chest and stomach at all, right?
Hard to see you because you don't really have lighting. I got this. Okay, I'm gonna look because I got the sun shining. Your spine should be as straight as possible.
Straight, not with its natural curve, so to speak.
Well, show me. So show me straight, and then show me.
So
arched.
this is straight, which is a little bit more relaxed.
Okay.
And this is like pushing arched. Straight, 1, 2, and then like 3, I guess.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay.
So the idea is, okay, got it. So which feels better to you? Or and when I say better, I mean better when held for a long period of time, not better right now.
I think 1 does, but over time, I think I might shift a little bit. Whereas I've heard it's supposed to be kind of strenuous, right?
Yes. So with the second one, with it the slight archy or not, it's more strenuous, but you don't shift.
If I'm conscious of it, if I remain conscious of the muscle actuation and I keep pushing into it, I don't shift. But
then use that one.
Okay.
Because if you make it too comfortable, then you'll just kind of like jellify after a while. It should be a bit strenuous. Even God Asana, which looks like just sitting in a chair. I got a question about this last time. You're also pushing your knees together, and it's very strenuous because your knees will naturally drift apart from each other. It's quite strenuous. And Dragon is very much so. So
do I want knees together for Dragon too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think there's a clear-cut answer to that one. I mean, ultimately, the test for it is that you want a bowl of water on your head filled to the brim, which does not spill a drop.
Yeah.
So that actually, and I will say that at least trying that, you don't need to get it right. Obviously, until you do, you can work into it. But trying that actually helps quite a bit with posture, because in order to do that, you have to have your posture locked in, and you can kind of feel your way into it with that weight on your head, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you can try that, but I just from what you've demonstrated, it sounds like 2 is the way to go. 3 looked just you're just contorting yourself at that point.
Okay. Cool. And there's a lot of people here. I just wanted to ask. I went through a recent breakup where I sort of followed my intuition that things weren't really good for me, and followed my emotion. But after I followed my intuition and got out of it, I'm like, okay, intuition, I did the thing. What's next? My intuition is just like, I don't know. So Is there a
I'm laughing with you, not at you.
Yeah, no, I get it, man.
Life, yeah.
Is there a way to tell the difference? Any tips for telling the difference between intuition and projection?
Well, that's a great question, and that's kind of the crux of a lot of stuff, right? I mean, that's that. This is so the intuition, kabbalistically speaking, is the neshama, right? It is associated with the sphere of bina, and it is beyond doth knowledge the mind, right? So it is
divine
beyond,
feminine.
Yes, it is, right? And as opposed to hokmah, the divine masculine, which is just the will, the incarnating will, the non-verbal will, the pre-verbal will. Somebody saying audio is not good. Is anyone else? Are you experiencing that?
Yeah, your audio sounds fine to me.
Okay. Then okay. I don't know. Hopefully, maybe people can check their own audio. Oh, your audio. Okay. Okay. So the intuition is, in a way, this is one of the primary questions of magic. I mean, because the intuition, the neshama, is pre-verbal and pre-incarnational. And it is felt and not thought. So if it's something you're thinking, then I would ask the text, if you would mind not texting questions, because I don't do tech, and it pops up and just distracts my train of thought. Please, no texting during the discussion. Okay, but if you want to ask the question live, I will be happy to answer it if I have time. Okay, so the intuition, the whole point of a lot of these practices, including meditation, asana, psychedelics, ritual magic for sure, but also things as blatantly obvious as divination, right? So I Ching, tarot, all that. The whole point of them is to get outside of the linguistic mind and into the intuitional mind, or the neshama, right? So it is feminine because it is felt and perceived as divine field consciousness. So pre-verbal, or a better way of putting it, is you just know. Right. It's kind of like when people say, like, well, how do you know when you meet the one for you? And like your dad will say, like, well, you'll just know. And you'll be like, that is so fucking unhelpful. But it's like that. But that what we're talking about is the neshama, right? It's like it's almost like perceived as just the way reality is, in a sense. Like there's no other option. There's no optionality to it. In some cases, not as a rule. But the whole question of the Tao, right? The whole question of Taoism is Taoism, the Tao Te Ching, the I Ching is basically, well, how do you get out of, how do you surrender volition and will and get into the natural intuitional flow of life? This is really the whole question of Eastern religion, Taoism, Buddhism, all of this. It's really, how do you get out of your own way, right? Because that's where all the good stuff is. That's where all the quote unquote magic of existence is, not the magic that comes from you, like as in the discipline of magic, which is just another, perverse creation of man, but the natural magic of existence, right? Or the magic of reality, as Richard Dawkins would put it, right? So therein lies the whole question. Now that said, you can go too far in that. And now all these techniques and all these tools that I'm teaching at Magic.me are, in a sense, artificial constructs meant for doing so. And they primarily, not always, but quite often appeal. Well, no, I'm not even going to make that statement because it's obviously not true. So I'm going to skip that. But these are artificial tools, in a sense, to get into that intuitional flow. But that said, you can go too far into that direction, into the feminine or receptive approach to life. And Eastern philosophy in general perhaps can at times err too far in this direction, as opposed to, the Eastern tradition is very much about, well, just, I wouldn't say it's accept life as it is, but be perceptive to the natural flow of things and don't muddy the water by exerting too much will, because it's actually a much more masterful and powerful position to not act. The whole central question of Eastern religion is non-action, which is the by far superior to any idea of magical action, right? Or action at all. Non-action is always more powerful. You can study that in so many ways. Tao Te Ching, the art of war, Sun Tzu, applies this to warfare. So Western philosophy, and by extension Western magic, which is just like this tiny little weird like outpost of Western philosophy, is much more concerned with volition and will, because Western thinking is all centered around, forceful exertion of willpower. Nietzsche's will to power, or Schopenhauer, the world as will and idea. And the whole Western orientation to the world has been the imposition of will upon it, right? And this also, obviously, you can go too far in the direction of, and it gets a bad rap because it's like, well, this leads to imperialism and ecological distortion and blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And it's like, sure, right? But you got to admit, it gets a fuck of a lot done, right? Are there lots of side effects? Yeah, there are, right? There's, that's the thing. There's too many side effects, but
does the will to power like kind of leave love on the wayside sometimes?
No.
Okay.
Love is the will to power.
Love is the will to power. Love of power?
Well, if you met some of the girls I've met,
yeah.
Well, look, I mean, like, here's the thing. It's like all these things need to be balanced. That's the use of and the brilliance of a system like Kabbalah, where you can balance all these factors together, because you can sit there and debate like what's more important for life, intuition or volition, love or power, love or fear, all this. And the answer is you need all of them, and you need them properly harmonized and balanced. And you can use a schema like the Kabbalah to do so. And most of the arguments in our history and philosophy, and certainly our culture now, largely boil down to favoring one aspect of human existence over the other, when in fact you need them all, and you need them all balanced and harmonized, which is why something like Kabbalah is so useful. Even something like Taoism is too myopic in a sense, because we're too literally black and white, right? Even if it's all about the flow between black and white, you're still playing with two colors or light, ends of the light spectrum rather than 10 in the sense of Kabbalah. So you have a much more limited palette. So I think my answer to your question then is, when do you know it's intuition, when not? I think that in general, it's from your intuition when it is nonverbal and just felt at a deep level, right? And not in a passing sense of just, it in your bones to be true, almost as if it is a mandate, right? Now that said, it becomes one of the reasons why you need magic and not mysticism, is because on the spiritual path, if you simply take the mystical, it's very easy for mystic people to simply just be passive. And by passive, I mean, we're just waiting for my sign from the universe. I'm just waiting for, I'm waiting for a sign. I'm waiting for things to become clearer. I'm waiting for the road to be made clear for me. I'm receptive to God's will. And yogis and, people of many spiritual paths are quite, this describes a lot of people from a lot of different paths, where they're just simply sitting there saying, well, it's God's will, not mine. Well, it's like, get a job, hippie. You know what I mean? It's like, fucking, like, you have a say in it too, right? Presumably, if that logic is correct, like, isn't your own volition and willpower part of the overall schema of quote unquote God's will? Of course. Why else would it not only exist, but be central to your entire existence, right? Just because you do something on intuition, like for instance, tying your shoes or driving, because you've done it 10,000 times to the point where it seems automatic, doesn't mean that it's not volitional, right? It's just volitional at a very deep level. So I guess my answer is, well, that's how you tell something is intuition from the intuition, but don't overvalue the intuition, as the, value it greatly, right? But just don't forget that at the end of the day, you have free will, right? That's Hokmah. Hokmah is will, free will, the ability to choose, right? So value intuition, but always remember you have the ability to choose something new at any moment. And it's totally true, right? It's like, And that's another pitfall on the spiritual path, I think at least, which is that people become too passive and then end up in a state of inactivity. The real state of surrender is in the middle of the fight, in the sense of not surrendering the fight, but literally giving it your all, and then a bit more. And when you're already giving 110%, just relaxing into the fact that you're giving 110%, or it's like, as it, I think Crowley put it, the charioteer is lost in the act of charioting. It doesn't mean stay at home and don't do anything. It means give it your all, but surrender the outcome, or surrender to giving it your all. Also in the Hindu sense of karma yoga, give it your all, but be detached from the outcome, because otherwise you'll just be awkward about it. Hopefully that's kind of helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Both and. Everything's on a polarity, a spectrum, right?
I'm not sure across the abyss can be, but sure.
Yeah. All right. I'm taking up a lot of time. I've had Christ-like experiences lately, where it feels like unconditional love. I feel like the sun. It feels like love her anyway, and it's like I'm stepping into a different world almost. Any practices to help cultivate those things? Any gods to invoke or anything like that?
Christ is fine, and Christ is great, and we could all use a little Jesus on us. Particularly in the dark year of our Lord 2020. So Christ and Christ, the sun, all of this, solar consciousness is Tefereth. So below the abyss, right? So to deal with Christ consciousness, so this is another thing, is central and critical. In fact, it's the central spoke of the entire tree of life. And it is associated with man's humanity, right? Not man's inhumanity. Man's inhumanity to man. Man's humanity to man. So the whole question of your that which makes you human, your compassion for other people, all of the best in humanity is Tefereth, right? And that is Christ, right? The true Christ, which is incarnate in all humanity as their highest and most noble, virtuous selves, right? And it too is only but one of 10 spheres, right? But it's the thing about Christ consciousness is that it is the highest level of man's consciousness. Beyond Tefereth is the non-consciousness of Geburah and Hesed, and then beyond that is the abyss of the unmanifest. So Tefereth is the highest state that you can access with your conscious mind, right? So in your conscious waking life, you only got 5 spheres to worry about. The rest are inferred. You feel their effects, but you don't have conscious action with them. They're not part of your consciousness makeup. Their effects are felt and inferred. So,
I'd love to crystallize in it and hold it, but I think that's greedy.
Well, that's exactly it, right? And such as the there's actually a name for it, the trap of Christ consciousness, or the veil of. That's the thing. I mean, it's like, everyone wants to be peaking on E forever.
It's what it feels like, man.
Well, exactly, right? Ecstasy is solar attributed. Everyone wants to peak on E forever, but you got to come down. And the thing is that you have to integrate it. And this is another pitfall on the spiritual path, where everyone wants the good stuff, but you have to come down and then reintegrate all that within your mundane life. You can touch heaven for a bit, but then you got to come down, and that's when the real work begins. To experience states like this, including the one you discussed at the beginning of the call, they are simply previews or ripenings of karma of prior effort. But it's what you do afterwards that matters, right? It's how you manifest that in Malkuth that matters, right? Because otherwise you just end up state chasing, which will ultimately get you nowhere, right? It's like this is kind of the thing about not chasing cities in the East, where it's like you enjoy and experience these spiritual states when they come, but you can't cling to them. You know, the Buddha's point of non-attachment, you can't cling to them, because the harder you chase them, the further they will run away from you. You need to simply sit and continue your practice and not get hung up on the highs or the lows, because they'll all change no matter what. Everything in the universe is in the process of changing, and everything is impermanent, right? So all states will fade into other states. There's any state you want out there. I mean, yes, Tifereth, Christ consciousness, sure, you can access that. You can also access the depths of hell within the Qliphoth and the tunnels of Set through Doth, and those are just as real or unreal in a sense, the degradation of all existence. So all of that is there, but the thing for a magician to do is to experience these things and then harmonize them by using what I have to agree with is the best schema, which is the tree of life, so that you understand that all of that is there, and you have you experience the whole territory. You use the map to experience all these states and then put them in order so you understand how they interrelate. Because none of these are ultimate or final states. They're just the aspects of a human soul, right? Which stitched together create a human consciousness, right? And the more experience you have of your being, the closer you get to understanding what you are, and therefore the closer you get to being able to express whatever that totality that is referred to as the true will, which is more of a simply, I would say, self-realization or self-understanding, perhaps, is a better way to put it. I think self-understanding is a much better way to put it than self-realization. Again, using the phrase understanding from Bina, because realization implies a finality. It implies like there's something you need to get, you need to figure out. And it's not like that. I mean, life goes on. I think a self-understanding is a much healthier way to put it, because it's an ever unfolding, ongoing process.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And thank you, everybody, for sharing your time. I hope you got something out of that.
All right. You got to keep at asana. Do number 2 and keep at it. Don't let spiritual states break your practice.
Okay.
Even if they're really good. Just keep going. Keep practicing.
Yeah.
All right.